Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute's Gen AI for Leaders Pro Course Q&A. And for those of you who I haven't met yet, my name is Bonnie Bloomer, and I am a member of RPI's Rensselaer at Work leadership team. And we are so proud to be offering professionals these short, online, project-based pro courses, one of which, the Gen AI for Leaders Pro course, is one of the most popular, and in large part due to the amazing team we have with us today who are leading that pro course. They are our all in on data guys, one of which is an RPI alumnus, Peter Memon, and his work partner, David Gleason. So we have a list of questions for David and Peter today, and we want this to be conversational. So if questions come up for those of you who are in the room, feel free to use the chat feature in Zoom. You'll see that chat button at the bottom, and we have our colleague Justin Hume managing the chat, and he'll try to answer questions that you're posting along the way, and then certainly save some for the open Q&A at the end. So let's get into it. Peter and David, would you start by sharing a bit about your backgrounds and your expertise in Gen AI?
Sure, and I'll happily go first. And good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for taking the time today and joining David and I. We look forward to this conversation. By the way, my background, as Bonnie said, I graduated RPI back in 1989. I was a graduate of math and computer engineering. My career largely was spent in finance, working at many of the financial service firms for the first, I would say, 15, 20 years, designing institutional trading systems for most of the banks. From there, I kind of segued into analytics and just serendipitously, be honest. And then for the last 15, 20 years or so, I've also been doing quite a bit of work in analytics and actually started using artificial intelligence in a trading system design from 2005. So I've been in this space for a long time, working closely with with artificial intelligence and analytics and building out large data repositories.
Yep. And hi, I'm David, and as Peter said, I'm his business partner in a venture we started last year called All In on Data. And I did not graduate from RPI. I am unfortunately a liberal arts degree holder, so but don't hold that against me. I actually spent all of my career also working in data and analytics, and over the last several years, spent more and more time on AI and the underlying data issues that impact AI. So it's been a really fun journey. Like Peter, I have a lot of experience in financial services, and prior to that, worked in consulting, software, healthcare, logistics and distribution, and some other industries as well. So really excited to be here, and we're looking forward to telling you about what we have cooked up for this course.
Super. Thank you both. So let's start with a bigger question around how we should be thinking about the meaning and the importance of Gen AI in our organizations today.
That's a
David,
great question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it really goes to the heart of why we created this course and why we called it Gen AI for Leaders. Because I think if you look at most of what's been out in the press over the last 2 years or 2 years plus since the advent of ChatGPT 3, so many, what feels like years ago now, the conversation has largely been focused around personal productivity. Everyone knows how to use large language models and other generative AI tools to draw pictures or to write short stories or to summarize emails and things like that. And those are very powerful capabilities, but at the end of the day, that's only scratching the surface of what they can do. And so what gets Peter and I really excited is the fact that if you think about this as a tool for running companies, for building organizations and building real applications, it opens up this whole spectrum of other things you can do with generative AI. And just one example is that most of us in our companies have tremendous volumes of documents, unstructured documents, text messages, emails, chat messages, and it's always been very difficult to access that information and bring it into your data and analytics workflow. And generative AI changes the economics of that dramatically and makes it much more feasible to do. So we get very excited about the impact to really change the way companies operate through the judicious use of generative AI.
No, I think, David, you say that perfectly. And just to add a little bit to that, generative AI, David and I have been around the block a number of times, and we've seen a lot of new technology evolve over obviously many decades. I've honestly never seen anything quite like this. And I think the ability to really make major changes within an organization are pretty profound. And I'm not one prone to hyperbole and, over the top, lectures on this stuff, but it will have we think, a very massive impact on a business. And I think helping leaders truly appreciate how to use this technology, how to embed it into their businesses, how to view it, and truly get a better understanding of what it really is. And, past all the marketing stuff that's out there and all the nice little, graphics that get created, there is at the heart an extraordinarily powerful technology that, coupled with data and the right strategy and the right way of looking at it, are truly going to be, I think, beyond impactful to most organizations.
I love it. And there clearly is a lot of hype around Gen AI. So how would you both recommend organization leaders speak to the concerns around AI?
Yeah, it's the hype is huge, and I think it leads to a couple of risks. One is simply that we could easily overestimate or overstate what AI can do. And as Peter just referenced, AI is a hugely valuable and powerful tool, but it requires a lot of other things, including the right data and the right use case. So one risk is that it just be way too easy to overstate what you can do with AI and not understand the challenges. But the second that Bonnie, I think you sort of touched on is there's also a set of real risks. There's a whole field of responsible AI or AI safety that goes into what are the risks to personal privacy, copyright and legal risks, and all sorts of other potential downsides. And so I think that what we believe is you really need to educate yourself about how this form of AI works, not necessarily at a super detailed level, but enough to understand, one, how to come up with the right places to apply it and understand what it would take to apply, and two, to understand and avoid some of those big risks.
No, I think, David, you're spot on. Exactly. And, when you're embarking on a project, knowledge obviously always helps you make better decisions. And, David and I have been in many discussions with clients or potential clients, and we're always asked, is this something that is practical for generative AI? And if it is, what does it take to do it? And the hope is, throughout this class, we'll give you that knowledge, that insight, that ability to look at a use case, to look at problems with a different perspective. Oh, this might be, or this is a potential use case for generative AI. Again, I think when you walk into those conversations with a technologist, for instance, and you say, I actually know how this technology works, you make better decisions, you make better business decisions. And just to, I think, add on that one last thing, unlike a lot of other technologies that have evolved over many generations, I think AI for the first time, or generative AI specifically, is really far more impactful on the business side. And it helps to engage with the business in driving this technology. So it's a very different approach than, just putting out normal engineering or technical implementations of products.
Right, right. So let's talk about this. So we have RPI is offering this pro course, Generative AI for Leaders. Share with us the purpose of the course and what participants can expect to learn and do differently at work.
So I think when you go into the class, I think knowledge helps. And, people, or most individuals, if you're in the news, you get a very high level view of what generative AI actually is. You hear some of these terms, or maybe you don't, out there. We think that it helps to dive a little bit deeper. Again, this is not a technical class. We're not asking you to program, but we think it's very important to actually understand at some level how these generative models actually work. How were they trained? How do they make decisions? Or how do they come out and put output? I think there's a better way of looking at it. That information is very important. So that when you're, again, approaching a problem, you understand the technology. You have a better appreciation for what its capabilities are. So a senior leader, a senior manager, or somebody on the business side can go, wow, I actually have a problem that I think generative might solve.
Yeah, and I think that's a hugely important point that Peter makes. It's about first and foremost, being able to match opportunities and challenges in your business to the capabilities of generative AI. And to do that in enough of a precise way that you can understand what it would take to implement a solution. You can communicate effectively with your technology partners to really help describe the solution you have in mind, and you can understand how to control the risks and the downsides of it
Right.
and effectively create that solution. And I'll add one thing. Peter is 100% right. It's not a coding course. We're not asking people to program, but we did design the course to give people some opportunity to get hands-on in what I hope would be maybe a
Mhm.
little bit deeper way of interacting with some of these generative AI models than most people might have done just on their own. I don't
Right.
know exactly how much people are using them, but the people I talk to often they start out with a high degree of interest and they'll use tools, and then eventually it feels like a parlor trick and you sort of run out of steam and run out of things
Yeah.
to do with it. And Peter and I literally email each other every day with new ways that we've used these tools. We're working with them every single day, both as personal tools and to help create real applications and real systems for companies. So we want to share a little bit of that hands-on experience with people in the course as well.
So the title of the course is Gen AI for Leaders. So
Yes.
who is the pro course designed for? Is it just executives, emerging leaders? Describe that for us.
I think both. I think, when we went into this, the one I could say we, in some senses, excluded those who wanted to learn how to program. I mean, that might be, hopefully it's a fair statement. Those that are in decision-making roles about developing applications or solving business problems, I think are probably the right individuals to attend the class. If you're sitting, especially if you're sitting on a business side of any organization and you like to know how to use this better, this class is certainly for you. That also, I think, includes technical leaders as well, who are helping the business and really want to understand, how can I utilize this technology to better serve my business? Is that fair, David?
Yeah, it is fair. We chose the word leaders also because we wanted to describe a behavior more than a job title. So the way I look at it is if you think like a leader, you are a leader. And so anyone who is going to be thinking about how could I leverage this technology to improve a process at my company, regardless of what your job title is, if that's the way that you're thinking about things, then this course could help, right? You don't have to have a certain title. You don't have to have command of a budget. It's really if you believe that you want to find ways to apply this technology to your business, uh, our goal is to give you some of the tools to help do that.
And I just want to add one more thing to that. And obviously, you can see, I think David and I get very excited by the technology. We're always, every day, I think, mesmerized by the things that we learn and what technology is capable of doing. If you're walking into a meeting and you're trying to solve problems, to me, having the knowledge of how this technology actually works, it opens up a whole bunch of new doors. How do I solve these issues? And you start finding problems that maybe you thought were intractable or difficult that now you recognize can be solved. And I think that to me is exciting. We have meetings with, again, customers, and we walk in and go, "Oh, you can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this," and you see their eyes light up.
That's awesome. So in relation to that, we also hear from folks if there are any prerequisites or previous experience or education that they would need to participate.
The short answer is no. I mean, we designed it such that it wasn't required.
Right. Sense of curiosity is really all it takes,
Was
I
really
think.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So let's go to the end of the course. Someone's participated in the course, they're done. What happens at the end?
Yeah. So that's let me maybe describe a little bit of the journey to get to the end too, because part of what we designed is a course where each participant will sort of be working on a case study and refining it and expanding it over the length of the course. And the final project, if you will, is the culmination of that case study where the students or the participants will basically take an idea that they developed early in the course. They will have actually hopefully come up with several ideas, and based on what they're learning throughout the course, they will refine those ideas and eventually discard some of them in favor of the one that they feel is the most valuable and most executable at their organization. Or I should say at their hypothetical organization, because it doesn't require them to, use real life examples from their company. And then they'll work on refining. How would they pitch that idea to management, and how would they explain it to technology partners, and basically present the benefits, the approach, the strategy, and how they would manage the risks of this idea. And so really at the end of the course, what we have is a group of participants effectively pitching to each other and saying, this is the idea I developed, and here's how we would implement it, and here's what I would ask for in terms of support to create this in my company. So.
Right.
So a little more about the logistics and the experience in the pro course as far as how participants access it online, synchronous sessions, conversations with the both of you on the side. How does that work?
Right. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll start, please. David, chime in. Obviously, there's a lot of content online that we provide. We have, classes that we teach where it's pure lecture classes where you could, listen at your leisure. We expect it will take on average 4 to 6 weeks of your time to complete it, I think, well. Obviously, I think with any class, it's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. There is a weekly session where David and I will be available for much more open discussion where you can just ask any kind of questions that you normally wouldn't have you couldn't get answered.
Yeah, we put, I think, quite a bit of time when we sat down and talked with the team at RPI about how we wanted to structure the course. One of our goals was to put as much time into producing some recorded content and lessons and some workshops that are more interactive,
Right.
so that we can take the live hours that we'll do once a week and really have those be focused on just conversations amongst the group and questions and diving into topics that maybe people said, hey, when you talked about this last week in the lesson, what did you really mean? And so we wanted to make sure that we don't want to spend the lifetime lecturing. We want to spend the lifetime just having really interesting conversations with people. And so we
Right.
did a lot of work to record quite a few hours of lessons with some beautiful graphics. We have to say that because we spent a lot of time trying to make them. So yeah, that's our approach.
Yep.
Excellent. And the synchronous sessions that you host are typically hosted in the evening, right? For
Yep.
those who, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We make sure so that you can attend after work.
Awesome. Awesome. So another question that comes up that I'd love to hear you address is people are busy, right? So how many hours should they expect to commit to projects and the synchronous sessions and conversations, let's say within a given week?
Yep.
We targeted 4 to 6 hours, I think, a week between content and sessions and everything together and all the exercises. And again, obviously, I think, it depends on you get out of it, what you put into it. But that was the target, that we wanted to make sure that given everybody these obviously executive level classes, everybody has a busy life, busy work life, that you can fit this in and get a lot out of it.
Yeah. And the nice part, I think, is that of that 4 to 6 hours, really 90 minutes of that roughly every week is at a fixed time. It's the evening synchronous session that we talked about. And the rest of it can be, on your iPad, on your iPhone, or on your laptop, or wherever you are at various times, watching some recorded content and working through some of the exercises. So generally, most of it's pretty flexible around when you want to do it. Plus that weekly check-in that we'll have.
Perfect. So I want to go into a topic that we were discussing a few weeks ago around generative AI models and capabilities changing all the time. So can you describe how this course keeps up with this environment of rapid iteration, experimentation, the eureka moments?
So we tried to when we went into the class, and we knew obviously this was happening. I mean, it was moving at light speed, technology, and it's like I said, David and I email each other literally every day, multiple times a day. Look at what I found today. We tried to make a lot of it purely foundational, things that we know or concepts that we know are not going to change, so that when you learn, there are takeaways. They'll apply to anything. Clearly things change, and the intent is to modify the class appropriately when things do change and there are new concepts that are out. But the vast majority of class, and you agree, David, is that it's meant to be consistent across the new technologies.
Yeah, I think if you look at what has evolved in the last even year or so before we even put the course together, the fundamental mechanisms by which these models work have remained the same. So we talk a lot about how they
Right.
work. And again, as Peter said earlier, it really is essential to understand, at least at a conceptual level, how these models work so that you can start to predict where you can apply them to your real world. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone has to be a mathematician and understand the complex mathematics behind this. I certainly don't. Peter does. I don't. But it does mean that you need to understand at a foundational level how they work. Now, on top of that, we've seen lots of different layers and wrappers around them. And we do talk about some of those in the course, and we have continuously gone back and added things to the course. And secret confession time, some of the material that we have, we actually have the ability to go in and regenerate portions of video using AI because we know that if we were having to constantly re-record videos, that's all we would do every week trying to keep up with things. So
Right.
we do try to keep it fresh, but we also try to keep most of the content sort of evergreen. Now, I'm sure as soon as I say that, there will be an announcement of some truly groundbreaking new technology, and there will be a fundamental change in the way these models operate. But so far, that hasn't happened. So we've stayed somewhat evergreen.
Yes.
That's great. You're walking the walk. So one quick question. The if either one of you would address the benefits of multiple employees participating in the pro course.
I think that's actually an awesome situation personally. I think there's a big benefit to having multiple people in an organization who understand the personality of that organization and understand how to apply the technology and be able to have those conversations that we necessarily can't have with you. If you work in the same org, you understand the personality, you understand the culture, you understand the systems, you have a much deeper understanding of the organization. And I find that when individuals get together and have conversations, you all of a sudden get to new outcomes and new ideas, and you could take something simple and make it, or you take it in a completely different direction. So now I think that, to me, having a number of individuals from organization is, I think, for them, fantastic.
Yeah, I think that creative spark that happens when you have people with a shared background, they may have different viewpoints and different lived experiences, but they also have that shared context of working in the same organization. And so you can see some really creative discussions about how this technology might be applicable to that organization.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the advancement of the organization is accelerated.
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Great. So I'm going to share with everybody real quick and ask my colleague Justin, who I think is really busy managing the chat, to put the URL for our RPI Pro Course portfolio into the chat. And we're going to plug into the Generative AI for Leaders tile and let you know that the next run of this course begins March 31st. It's a 6-week course. And there are continuing education units that are earned for those who participate in the course. So for anyone with employer tuition benefits, you can check to see if the course qualifies for those tuition benefits. In addition to the continuing education units, participants will earn a RPI certificate of completion, as well as a verified digital credential. So scrolling on down the page, you'll hopefully see all the details that you need to understand the goals of the course. We've also got this really cool video from All In on Data's creative team. And certainly, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send us a question. We're really good at getting back to you and addressing any questions that you have for you. So, Justin, how are you doing? What's going on with the chat?
Well, I've managed to keep my head mostly above water here. I know that there had also been questions shared in the event registrations here. So, Bonnie, I want to allow some time for you to get to that. And I've got two here in the chat. I hope to start with the first, which was a little bit higher level. And then if we have the time, we can dial into that more granular question. So the first question that I'd like to begin with here is shared by RPI alumnus, Lev Lisokin, who Bonnie, you and I had met in New York City a couple of years ago. Lev shares, I see the primary use case of LLMs as various forms of summarizing a lot of content. Have you seen any other class of use cases in practice for David and Peter?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And I
Mhm.
think part of what gets us very excited is there are a lot of additional use cases that don't have anything to do with summarizing content. So one of the examples, and Peter can talk about some of the projects we've worked on, but one of the examples is just the fact that you can use large language models as almost a query language to get information that has been previously locked up in documents and other unstructured data sources. And if you think back to prior to large language models with natural language processing and other ways of getting access to this information, it was expensive, time consuming, and low fidelity. And so it just wasn't economically very attractive. And now, thanks to large language models, suddenly you can actually leverage all of this knowledge that might have been locked away. So that's sort of a high level observation. Peter, I can guess which one of our projects you might talk about, but surprise
Yeah,
me.
I'm sitting here going back and forth on which one I'm actually going to speak about. I'll leave the name of the customer out of this one, but just suffice to say, in more broadly, I think what we found about these models are they are fantastic at education. And education is, I think, is a broad term. It's you can use it in a way to teach at an individual's level as you understand where they're at. In different cases, you can use it to generate a set of instructions on maybe how to repair an appliance, for instance, pulling in data sources from across the web, whatever they may be, and again, generating a series of instructions depending if I'm a beginner or I'm a sophisticated user. And interactively respond to that user and adjust accordingly on where they are at. I think is a great use case for these types of things. And effectively, I don't want to say they're thinking. I know that's how we tend to view them, but they're basically thinking in some respects.
One of the other, I'd say, sort of common use cases, and I'll be really quick. I don't want to take all of our time on one question, but it has just been enabling customers or customer-facing representatives to navigate through lots and lots of information. So imagine if you're a corporate insurance customer and you have this complex policy with hundreds of pages, and you can ask a simple question and say, tell me about my coverage for X, Y, and Z. And you get an algorithm that can comb through those hundreds of pages of your policy document and give you back an accurate summarized result. So lots of interesting use cases beyond traditional summarization, I would say.
And I just want to add one tiny little thing, and we can get off this question really quick. And I think the common misnomer or the common perception is it's only text. And I think that's the important thing. It's not just text. It's text, it's video, it's images, it's sound, it's all of the above.
Great point. All right, to be mindful of everybody's time, we will close with a big thank you to Peter and David for your time and your expertise. We are so honored to be working with you. So thank you. And thank you to all of you who were able to join the conversation. You can expect to receive a recording of this Q&A. We do have the questions, so we'll be sure to put some time into responding to your questions offline. And know that we're here. We're here to continue the conversation about your work. We're here to learn what you want to learn and what you want to accomplish in your career and what you want to accomplish within your organization. So please keep in touch and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.